All right, so we should take a second to congratulate the Yukon Huskies and the South Carolina Gamecocks on their national championship in men's and women's basketball, respectfully.
Mm-hmm.
But the real story for me for the entire tournament boiled down to numbers: 18.4 million viewers for the women's national championship. It's the most watched basketball game in the past 5 years. That includes all the NBA finals and all the other Final Fours. Over $83 million is the estimated gross income that Caitlin Clark provided to Iowa City, Iowa this season. And over 3.5 times any other women's basketball game were bets made on the national championship game between Iowa and South Carolina. Wow. 3.5 times any women's basketball game ever on DraftKings Sportsbook bet on this game. Big numbers, fellas. You think the women are catching the men?
Man, first of all, they surpassed the men. I was more intrigued with women's college basketball as the college season progressed, way more so than the men. I feel like that, and this is no shot at us men, but it is going to be a shot at us men. I feel like that it has kind of gone to a direction of where basketball players, they just really are just in it for the 1 year with the NIL deal, and and the main topic outside of LeBron James' son, Ronnie James, and his level of play at USC. I feel like that him in this transfer portal request, or actually not transfer portal, it's him coming out to the draft or declaring for the NBA draft, had received more publication. He received more publication than the actual men's basketball March Madness itself. Whereas Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Paige Buchers, and such and so on, these ladies, namely headlined by Caitlin Clark, has been really on a mission of changing globally women's basketball on a collegiate level and beyond. I loved with the women's coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks. I'm blanking on her name. I apologize. But after they won, she had given massive credit to Caitlin Clark, and it was very much, rewarding to see because Dawn Staley, that's her name. She had absolutely, because she's absolutely right. Caitlin Clark had put the world on her shoulders for the ladies to make sure that the game of basketball is being watched by everybody, not just the women that play the sport or anything like that. It's just been so archaic where these ladies have been going in, they're seeing half-empty arenas and whatnot and stuff. And then Caitlin Clark shows up, has the outlandish college season that she did last year. And now this year, I thought they were going to win it all, but they didn't. It is what it is. But more challengers like an Angel Reese shows up just to really kind of elevate the sport for women's college. And I just love it. And I honestly think that they've surpassed men's college basketball in that world.
Yeah, better storylines, better stars. And I'm telling you, I don't think the run of women's basketball being important is over because Juju Watkins, screw Ronnie James. The most exciting basketball player at USC is Juju Watkins. Tim, you got any take on the women's Final Four, women's national championship? You can't tell them to run the damn ball. They're not allowed to. It's illegal in that game.
No. So, like I said I think it was on the homies. I think I said, this whole evolution of the women's basketball tournament, I think it surpassed the men's completely. I think it overshadowed them, and I think, and I just feel like it's well deserved for them, for what they're doing in the sport, because, it's always men's football, men's basketball that we always see. And, when the women's tournament comes, to see that the heightened, the viewers, the betting, the stories, it's exciting for, women's sports in general, because, after college, what do we see on the women's side of sports. There's the WNBA, there's PGA golf, there's tennis. We don't see anything else. For us men, we see baseball, football, basketball, soccer, hockey, so for this era and for what Caitlin Clark did during her career in college basketball by breaking that record, it's exciting. I'm happy for her. I'm not a big basketball guy. I never really have been, but it's very nice to see the viewers change from always men's sports to to women's dominant basketball, because I still believe that the women's basketball dominated the men's basketball this year than it ever has before.
Can't argue that. And the last thing I'll say before we start the show, start talking about the Bengals, I watched both national title games. I only fell asleep during the men's game. All right, welcome back, Cincinnati Bengals and NFL fans in general. Welcome to Runnin Thru the Jungle. I am your host, Brandon Herriott, here with your hosts, Justin Lacey and Tim Lyons. What's going on, fellas?
What up? What to do?
Man, pretty good.
I tell you, I got good news, bad news today. Bad news is my trip to Cincinnati got canceled.
No,
So we got to figure that whole thing out. The draft preview is going to change up a little bit next week. So we're going to figure that piece out for you. Stay tuned. It will be a big one. Regardless of that, the good news is I've started working with Mod on our new intro for this coming season. Should be fun. Should be fun. Got to get the players. There's a lot of players on there that are going to be with us this year. So we got to make some changes. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Get those thumbs up, those numbers up. We appreciate you guys rocking with us. If you can get just one person out of your friends group by posting this on your page, it is much appreciated. We keep growing those numbers even during the off season every week, and it's all because of you guys. We thank you for it. Let's get started with what's been in the news the past week. Mr. Sweat, who we all glowingly talked about last week, got a DUI last weekend down in Texas. I don't know. I don't even know how to react to it. Tim, I'm going to throw it over to you. In or out on DeAndre Sweat? Like, what does this do to his draft stock value, or how you view him as a Bengals front office exactly?
It's piss poor timing. It's not the time to be getting into trouble for anything. It's not the time. It's not the time to go on your Facebook, your Twitter, your TikToks, your Instagram, and do something stupid right before the draft. The draft is literally 14 days away.
So you're saying no marijuana gas mask?
Yes, no marijuana gas mask. But
got it. Noted.
Unfortunately for Sweat, he made a mistake, and it is going to hurt. His draft stock's it's going to hurt him. It's definitely going to hurt him. But am I completely off the Sweat bus? I'm going to say no, because we could get him. Maybe he falls to the third round. Maybe we can get him in the third round. But then, we took that chance on Joe Mixon, many moons ago as well, with his allegations and all that stuff. And, now Sweat with the DWI, It's a DWI. I'm not going to say, it's not a bad thing, but it is a bad thing. But I wouldn't fold my cards on him completely. Like I said, maybe we can get him in the third round. Thoughts? I don't know.
Well, heck, we'll go right over to Justin with that one, Mr. Lacey.
No pun intended, but I'm not going to truly sweat it.
If he kicks to the third round, you still in on him?
Hell yeah, I'm still in on him. Come on, man. T'Vondre Sweat is still a guy that has massive talent. And then unfortunately, this, as Tim said, this is just bad timing on his part. But like I said, no pun intended, but I'm not going to sweat it. I really just need him to just focus on his character traits and really embody the mental side of the game moving forward. That's basically his number one focus is going to be. This now puts the ball into the leverage of the Bengals front office and then Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor for them to have an honest conversation, kind of like what Travis Kelce had with the Kansas City Chiefs when he was getting drafted by the Chiefs, I should say, out of Cincinnati. He had gotten in some trouble at UC, and
He
you
sure
know,
did.
and then next thing you know, Andy Reid, who had already drafted Jason Kelsey during his time with the Eagles, he was on the clock getting ready to draft Travis Kelsey, and basically he just got in his behind and said, "Look, what kind of player are we going to get? Are we going to get a jerk of a player or whatnot that's going to always constantly be in trouble and getting in media run-ins or whatnot?" Or getting problems off the field and whatnot, or we're going to get a guy that's going to be 100% committed to football. It was a hard conversation that the Chiefs coaching staff had to have at the time with Travis Kelce on the verge of getting drafted. And look at Travis Kelce now. And I'm using him as the latest example because it's not by any means saying that T'Vondre Sweat is going to ultimately fall into the Travis Kelce category of being a potential Hall of Fame. He may. There's been other cases to where there's been problematic draft players, but they're just talent rich. And you just still take a shot on them if you feel like that they embody the right stuff on the field and in the locker room. You can still take a chance on that. People were out on DeJuan Jones last year because of his weight size and his character concerns. Look at what the Browns just found now out of him. Obviously his short season got cut short with an injury, but they have a long-term answer at tackle. I'll tell you that. Jalen Carter with the Eagles, another guy who had off the field issues coming out of the draft. The
Don't
Eagles
even
take
hear about it anymore.
hell no, you don't even hear about none of that. And you already mentioned Joe Mixon, Tim. But at the end of the day, I just feel like that T'Vondre Sweat is a guy that I will still keep my draft stock in because he's one of two players at the position that really offers true eminent value for what he does. So my question is, people will say, well, what if you get him and he starts doing this like he has an explosive year one, but then after that he starts playing bad football the rest of the years or starts getting in trouble? Well, then guess what? I don't have to pay him that much and going into a second
Yeah.
contract, and I can pivot and move off of him quickly. That's what you got to think right now as Bengals fan. You got to stop thinking like any outdated Marvin Lewis in the Dave Shula eras, the old Mike Brown eras, to where the Bengals will just keep holding on to these guys, even if it means that they're going to get in trouble after a year of production. No, the Bengals front office these days and age, they don't wait around anymore. They're not going to sit and wait for you to like develop and be what we hope for you to be. Man, chances are they've kind of elevated past that stuff and moved into the 21st century nowadays where it's like, you know what? This ain't working. We got to make changes. And whether if it's kicking you off the roster or putting you on the bench and making you earn that spot again. But I think that T'Vondre Sweat is still a draft prospect to me that I will still swing and take a chance on, man. That's just how I feel. Even if he's right there in the second round.
Yeah. I mean, so it is a very unfair question, right? But our job here is to be gas bags. And have opinions and throw those things out there without actually doing background. This is a kid that we know has had some off-field mental health issues, has talked about wanting to quit the game before, went through a large weight gain, changed positions, and then really found his niche on the football field to the point of being a unanimous All-American and Outland Trophy Award winner. Those are the things I know about him for sure. I know when you put him in the middle of the field, he's a menace. He's hard to deal with. Those are things I know work really well for me. You did talk about the changing of the guard, and Coach Zach's basically, if you look, I mean, you can kind of point to Jackson Carmen a little bit if you want to be critical, but he drafts a lot of Logan Wilsons who are captains, a lot of high character guys and ex captains and things of that nature. So I'm guessing this is going to really pull them away, unless they really have, from their meetings, their evaluations, they have a really good feeling. So what I'm going to say is this: from a talent standpoint, I'd still love to have him. If the Bengals draft him, whether it's a second round or third round, I'm going to feel very confident about what they feel they're getting with him mentally and because I don't think that they would go down that road unless they felt 100% about it.
Yeah, I agree. I have to agree with that as well too. And it's not like saying that if the Bengals, like you said, the Bengals don't draft them or just like, hey, I mean, we would like to take a chance on you, but just not in the second round. If you're there in the third round, sure. I'm not going to be mad at them for that. Again,
Yeah.
I think the Bengals will be operating with the mentality that, look, man, we're trying to win a championship this year. We want our draft picks to be able to be involved. Like the early parts of our draft picks need to be involved right away. You know what I mean?
And listen, if you're 40 something or you're like Justin and you're a student
32.
of the game and know more trivia than most people I know as Bengals fans, for me to say now that our front office and coaching staff has earned my trust in drafting. Oh wow. I didn't say that. I didn't say that for decades, man. But I think the way they've been doing it the past 5 years, I'm going to trust them. They've hit more
and
than
everybody
they've missed.
And look, everybody's going to point out the misses that they've had in recency bias. But if you look at Zach Taylor's track record, overall totality, well, align this with since Joe Burrow has been drafted at the quarterback position. The drafts really kind of fell into place naturally themselves. Obviously, you want to see improvement with them drafting O linemen for that to start panning out now. They have to do better with that. And you also want to see some of those late round picks start to pan out as well, too. But dude, to be perfectly honest, since the Joe Burrow draft, I'm just pointing at that one more specifically and moving and beyond. These draft picks has actually been falling into place naturally. Like you think of 2020, obviously Joe Burrow was round one, T. Higgins was round two, who many people didn't think that we were going to even draft him. They thought we was going to get the lineman right then and there. But no, they saw value with T. Higgins. You mentioned Logan Wilson, round three. Akeem Davis Gaither, round four. They really invested at that linebacker position that particular year in the draft. Khalid Kareem, he had some snaps, even though he's not with the team anymore. But that's what happens when you make draft picks like that. You already know 2021 included Jamar Chase, but that also produced Evan McPherson too in the fifth round that they say, he's our guy. We're going to go and get him. And then it continues. These things just naturally just build off of themselves. So I think the Bengals have done a really good job of evaluating draft picks, and you're not going to get every single one of them right. I know how frustrating it can be.
And yes, in some of the later round draft picks, especially recently, Tyson Anderson, DJ Ivy, you've had unlucky breaks there as far as injuries go. Guys that looked like they were going to be good special teamers that were going to work their way into the lineup.
Yeah.
And they get hurt. You know what I mean? So, I mean, when you start looking at those guys coming back, do you expect them to really be impactful this year? Probably not. It's probably going to take them at least half the year to really get their sea legs under them. But the depth, especially at safety, I mean, Tyson Anderson looked like he might be taking that job at one point in time.
Yeah.
Like that depth at safety is ridiculous.
You mentioned about the injuries part, about like how some of our late rounds pick was just toppled with some injury luck that didn't break their way. But remember that for the longest stretch of time, both of y'all remember for the longest stretch of time, it always felt like that when we draft players in the first round, they're injured and they don't even play their rookie season. So my question is, would you rather trade in that to have your late round picks have an injury that's going to just like, all right, you're redshirted your rookie year, or your first round draft pick to be redshirted in his rookie year?
That's a zero question.
It's a no-brainer. Like, dude, I want my first round picks on the field year one. I just
Right.
I just can't. It just baffled me that every first round pick, all the way leading up to basically Jamar Chase, really, because every first round pick in years past, prior to that, including even Joe Burrow, got injured year one, and
Hmm.
that's a shame. And now it just feel like that our players are getting on the field. They're working their way on the field, and it's just refreshing to see. I pay attention to those little nuggets.
So transition from that over to this. Our 1.0 mock draft. You guys ready to go? We're going to go all 7 rounds.
No.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, if you checked it out, the title of this show is "Yes, I'm mocking your mock draft." I for the life of me, I we're going to do a large mock draft through I believe we're going to do it through the know-it-alls. Um if you some of you guys have seen me, I've been on there. Tim's guested on there. Um, some of them have been over here. The homies have been over here. I've been on the homies. Yada da da da. If you've seen us go around Pay Dirt, which you've seen on Running Through the Jungle, um, those guys are all we're all in one big happy family, and we're talking about doing one big draft with all of us together because most of us just want to do one, send it out, and be done.
Yep.
I cannot get over. I've seen out there in Bengals fandom. I'm not going to name shows or names or nothing where they do mock drafts where they do um, proposed trades.
Hmm.
Uh, what? You have no idea how that draft is going to go down. No
Right.
idea how that draft board is going to go down. We've talked more on this show about evaluation of players, who's a good fit, if they're available, who do you like to pick. Mock drafts do get clicks. People watch them for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Tim, how many mock drafts have you seen so far?
1,000,001. You know, I swear I've seen the same people do drafts every single stinking day. I'm like, you can put that Christmas list together all you want, but it doesn't mean Santa Claus is going to be coming to town. You know, like I said before, it's a Christmas list. You know, it's like, it's like playing fantasy football, and you hope that the Bengals follow what you want them to do, but we can twist everything in 5,000 different directions, and you might a clock is right twice a day. You know, a dead clock is right twice a day. You might be right, you might not be right, and it's the same thing with the mock draft. I understand that they want to put in different perspectives and say, well, this could happen and this could happen and all this other stuff. That's great. I'm happy for you guys. If that's what
Yeah, a
fills
lot
your
could
time,
happen.
yeah, if that's what fills your time because you got time on your hands to do what you need to do, then you guys go for it. I'll be happy to sit there and not watch it. So,
Yeah.
let's see what happens in the draft in 14 days.
Now, I will say this because you got me thinking here, just in case Santa is watching. Santa, my guy. For those of you listening on Spotify or Apple,
Brock Bauer.
that's a Brock Bowers photo right there.
Yes,
Yeah, if you can put him in striped Santa, go right ahead. Yeah, it's funny because if you listen to some of the stories after the draft that come out later on in the year, some of the trades that are almost made and don't get made on draft day are some of the coolest stories I've ever heard.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going to happen. Justin, you've been listening to a lot of these mock drafts.
I have actually, and quite frankly, I'm indifferent about like I don't find joy
Oh,
in
you
while
like them. Don't lie to me. You
listening
like
or
them.
doing. I enjoy some people's. Again, I can't name drop any sort of places that I'll watch mock drafts and stuff like that for their own personal protection and well, not protection, but privacy and whatnot.
Witness protection
But
program heard.
but there are some that I really thoroughly enjoy how their process and planning of understanding. Like, look, they do it because it's fun, and I like enjoying. It's like when I've always been a fan of a person that plays the video games when I was a kid, but never played it myself. It's like those hard games that that every time you play, you will be so bad at it. but when your big brother or
Gotta figure out
your
how to
big
cheat.
cousin
That's all
comes
you gotta
in,
do.
they started going in and start killing up everything, and they beat the big bosses and all that stuff. I always like admired that. It's kind of the similar situation like when I was a kid then to now, to where it's like, okay, I really enjoy how they do this process. And I enjoy the ones that goes in with an open mind of like, look, a lot of options can be on the table. Let's do one for like maybe a couple of rounds, maybe a third round, up to the third round, I should say. And then let's just see how the board falls in our favor. You're not hitching your wagon or falling in love with every draft pick and getting mad about like, oh man, well, I'm going to set this mock draft to purposely draft Brock Bowers, as we already had mentioned that we would
Mhm.
like. But at the end of the day, if he's not there, then you're like, oh man, he's off the board. Where do we go next? Well, you need to learn how to pivot because that's what real life reality happens. And that's where I and I get it, man. I don't like really falling into the clickbait trend because, like y'all said, mock draft season happens every off season. Is just so much abundance to it on a lot of shows, but I'm prefer that we just get into real ball talk and then let everybody else can do the mock drafts. You want the mock drafts? Well, you ain't finding them here on this particular show, even though we will do like a whole totality show
Yeah, you're
with
gonna
a
see
lot of
one.
people. It's
One.
not going to be one. It's not going to be one. Like there's going to be prospects we'll talk about that we would like to see get
Yes.
drafted, and that's pretty much to the extent of it. But at the end of the day, the board's going to fall where they fall. However, if somebody were to come to ask me and be like, "Hey, Justin, I'm thinking about doing a mock simulator. Will you be willing to participate in it?" I'll be like, "Sure, I'll be more than happy to participate in it. But let me understand what's your process first before I say yes and then just go crazy. Because if you're going with this with the hopes of, oh, I'm going to take Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, that's what the first round pick, and I hope the board falls that way. And if he doesn't be there, then I don't want nobody. Then we got a problem, man. Then I'm not going to want to join your circus of a mock show just for a clickbait material. But at the end of the day, man, mocks are fun. I get why people do it. I enjoy watching some of them, the ones, especially some of the big time name podcasters in the media world and whatnot. Some of those guys have a really great process to their mocks, and I
Hey,
enjoy listening to them. And they can actually go down further of evaluation of players that I haven't even touched yet.
if
So
you listen to the Mel Kipers and um, uh, McShay and all those guys, they talk about the mock drafts and how silly they are. Like, I've
mhm,
literally listened to those guys talk about how you have no idea what's going to happen. Like
yeah,
it's just we do it because people want it. That's it.
yo,
What I
I'll say
take
this.
away from it is I take away. I don't listen. Like I don't care who you're talking about drafting. Blah, blah. What I'm listening to other people for is when they talk about they're down to teetering between two or three people, and they break down their evaluation of those two or three people. That's the
Yeah.
only thing you can take away from it.
Oh, here's what I also say. Some of that too is just for media like abilities to where they want to influence certain decisions in the national landscape. Because I tell you this, when I paid attention to a lot of mock drafts, more specifically during the Joe Burrow, the 2020 draft, and the 2021 draft with the infamous Jamar Chase Panay, or I'm not even gonna call it infamous, but the famous Jamar Chase versus Panay Sewell draft debate because I really want to understand how the Bengals were being viewed in multiple senses. And in the Joe Burrow draft, so many people was so desperate to not have Joe Burrow land in Cincinnati that they created a mock with us taking Tua or Justin Herbert and then letting Burrow fall to Miami at 5. It was
Wild.
just so asinine and so dumb. Or
Right.
they would propose like, well, for this mock, we're going to just make the Bengals trade with the Dolphins. And it got so agonizing and like it got into my skin. And then with the Jamar Chase draft, we knew that it was such a raging debate across Bengal media world, like
Well,
Bengal
and
Nation.
and let's look. I mean, obviously, we're happy with our decision. Wouldn't want Chase anywhere else.
Mhm.
There was no wrong choice between those two human
There
beings.
was no wrong choice, but
They're both bad
the amount of people that
dogs.
kept hating on the Bengals because they were in talk about taking Jamar was just astoundingly annoying. And
But
when they kept doing their mock drafts, They was like, well, we don't want Jamar Chase. We know how talented he is, but we want him to go to Miami. I keep throwing Miami in there because it seemed like every flashy player they want down there, and they just didn't want no Lamborghinis in Cincinnati, and it got so annoying. And even Rashawn Slater was mocked to the Bengals that year for the most part. But yeah, no, that's where I really started paying attention to mocks, and I got really curious to see how people was viewing us. Really, these last few years, it's kind of it's just fun, but no real equity to it.
Yeah.
Did you have something to add to that, Tim?
The only thing I wanted to add was like during that Jamar Chase year, I was like, who did we just draft? Jamar Chase?
Because he
Wait a
sat
minute.
out the year before. Yeah,
Right. He sat out the year
Sat out
before,
the COVID year.
but also we got to remember that year before Joe Burrow, it was breaking Burrow season 1 too.
Yeah,
So
it was not.
it to me during that time, I know I seen all these drafts and all these mock drafts and everything, and when people were like, "Oh, you guys are gonna pick Jamar Chase," when we drafted Jamar Chase, I was like, "What the hell did we just do?" But hey, I'm happy to have Jamar
Yeah, he's
Chase.
bad dude.
I'm happy to have him though.
I was
All
team Chase all the way, man.
Yeah, I'm aware. I was Team Sewell. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad either way, to be honest with you.
Understood. I understood why the team Sewell had to be had, and I was not going to be upset either way. But it was just Jamar just added a level of dimension of explosion, and I saw it then. And if you watch the film instead of just looking at him like, oh, he's a wide receiver, like they wouldn't have made that. I believe firmly in my heart, the Bengals would not have made that decision if it was between Penei Sewell and Devontae Smith, who had just won the Heisman. They would not have made that decision if it was Jalen Waddle or Penei Sewell. But it
They
was
wouldn't. They
because
wouldn't have
Jamar
made that
Chase was
decision
different.
unless Joe Burrow said, "Go get my guy."
Yeah.
End of story. So we're going to take a quick break here. For those of you on YouTube, I mean, real quick break, but I'll give you just a few seconds to go down on that far left-hand side right below us. You can hit that thumbs up. Skip that next button because that's the thumbs down. Go to that one right beside of it and hit that share button and send it over to your social media and say, hey, Bengals friends, check it out. Whoop.
Yes.
We appreciate you. Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast, you're going to hear from our sponsors for a quick bit, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Running Through the Jungle. I'm your host, Brandon Herriott, with your hosts, Justin Lacey and Tim Lyons. We've went through some of the we made fun of mock drafts. We've went through some of the T'Vondre Sweat issues, talked about some college basketball, but now we're going to get into something a little more fun. We're calling this the draft from the past. So what I decided to do here was take a look at things as our favorite Bengals players, and do you have a comp to them in this draft that you would like to see the Bengals possibly get, whether it's first rounder, second rounder, fifth rounder, I don't care. I used the analogy of having my favorite was David Fulcher. I was a Fulcher vulture as a kid, no doubt. If you wanted to go get a hard-hitting safety in this year's draft, who would it be? I don't think we need to draft more safeties in this draft. Not saying we're not going to, because we could. I don't know. We do need some more people to play on special teams, but I digress. So I'm going to kick it over to you, Tim. Tim, why don't you give me one of your favorite Bengals and who you think might have a comp to in this year's draft?
Well, one of my all-time favorite Bengal, I watched him play, is Anthony Munoz, 6'6", out of USC.
Greatest Bengal of all time.
Yeah, best left tackle in the game. Yeah, actually, who was in the game? Unfortunately, Anthony Munoz was so good. There's nobody in this draft that's going to comp to him. There's no. I spent last night looking at the tackles, looking at the 3 Fs, looking at alt, everybody. I'm sorry, but there's nobody that compares to Anthony Munoz.
Agreed.
But in that being said, of course, I would like to see Fuaga or the guy out of Penn State or Washington, as a draft pick for a tackle position. They don't compare to Anthony Munoz right now. Not saying that they never could, but there's a possibility maybe one day they'll be able to raise that, that trophy.
I like it. We're going to kick it over to Justin for the next one.
Okay.
Tim, you got anybody else? We're going to kick it back to you after this.
Yeah, I do. I have a couple more on my list.
All right. Justin, go ahead. Let's hear your first one.
So one of my all-time favorite Bengals, I'm gonna start gradually and build up. Use a common player that everybody knows about, Geno Atkins. I feel like that he's still, for some reason, he gets disrespected as an all-time great when he is an all-time great. You don't really hear any of the conversations in his name about a potential future Hall of Famer. When he was an 8-time Pro Bowler, multiple first-team All-Pro, he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He was the one that paved the way for guys like Aaron Donald. As Aaron Donald, he's basically had a Hall of Fame career. Obviously, we know that in itself. First ballot at that one too. But Geno Atkins was the one that really set the precedent in the tone of that. And it's frustrating that I don't hear the respect on his name like you should be doing. And it's probably because he was drafted to the Bengals, because I feel like that he wouldn't be getting this much disrespect and hate post-retirement if he was drafted by another team like the Dallas Cowboys or something. He is my favorite. He was one of my favorite players that the Bengals have ever had.
He was my favorite
And
in that era, for sure.
That during that whole entire he
out.
changed the entire landscape of what the 3-tech position is all about. You never cared about the 3-tech position until Geno Atkins came into play. Again, like I said, he paved the way for so many guys. There's not going to be a lot of guys that's going to possess Geno Atkins' strength and power like he had all at once, and his speed to be able to just quickly knife inside the B gap and to be able to sack quarterbacks as great as he did. You're not going to see a lot of guys. However, there are 2 guys that has that potential. And I believe that they're both here in the first round that I would like to see the Bengals potentially look at and may potentially draft. And that's Jerzon Newton or Byron Murphy. I think that's the new debate, in my opinion, that I think the Bengals should make. I get it. Brock Bowers is there. I get it. They have a chance at getting like I said about Brian Thomas or such, or even a tackle with like a Fuaga or something. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, Byron Murphy, if you want to solve your entire D line in one full swoop, Byron Murphy or Johnny Newton. I know his name is Jerzanu, but he want to go by Johnny this time around. I like that better anyway. Those are the 2 guys that I feel like they can really kind of elevate your D-line room, what you already have there, and they're just an added addition to create more. It's the perfect position to where it marries the need and value all in one pick. So I'll start there.
Can I add to that? Another
Go for it. Go for it.
Geno Atkins. I love Geno Atkins. I've loved him when he was with us, and how it ended with us was sad. It was just sad as a Bengals fan to see him just walk off the field and never be seen again. But my other comp for Geno was actually Braden Fisk as well, because Braden Fisk, I actually watched film on Geno Atkins and Braden Smith and Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy last night while I was laying in bed. And I was like, okay, these 3 are like Geno. They're like Geno. But one thing that Braden Fisk has that the other 2 don't is speed. Because I remember watching Geno back in the day. I think it was against the Cowboys. They threw a screen pass to the running back, and I don't recall who the running back was at the time for the Cowboys. They threw a screen. Geno Atkins came out of nowhere, chased his ass down from behind, and tackled him. Okay. That's how quick Geno Atkins was. Now, Braden Smith, the reason why I give Braden Smith the number 1 comp for Geno Atkins is because he's fast. He's fast for a big man that's in the middle of the field. And he will chase you down and either sack the quarterback or pick up the tight end or the screen or, whatever. So that's what my comp was Braden Fisk.
So I'm gonna shovel to mine in here because I did mine a little different. All right. There's two combine stats. Defensive tackles, both ranked first in their draft class in athleticism, both with the same total score. One with a 4.85, one with a 4.89 in the 40, one with a 1.75, one with a 1.67. Broad jump, vertical jump within an inch. Bench press reps, one's a little bit stronger, 34 versus 29. Who do you think? I'm going to tell you right now, on the left-hand side is Geno Atkins. Who do you think? Do you think it's Fisk? Do you think it's Newton? Or do you think it's Byron Murphy on the right?
I think it's Sweat.
I can tell you Sweat didn't run a 4.89. He ran closer to 8.49.
4.8.
I'm about to say he Montez. I mean, I would say Montez. Tamandre, so I think he ran a 5 or something like that.
Is that Byron
And
Murphy?
it's not Braden. It's not Braden Fisk because Braden Fisk ran the fastest 40 time at 4.7. I watched that live. I can't really recall who this is. I feel like that this is probably Johnny Newton didn't test at the combine, if I'm not mistaken. Byron Murphy, I think he did more drills than this.
Rook. Aurora.
I would not really guess
Roro.
that. Luke row
6'1".
row your boat.
6'1", 293 versus 6'4", 294. So with the longer arms, you know, I think that might be part of the 34 benches versus 29. I think it's going to be very similar as far as brute strength.
Mm-hmm.
Those are pretty good comps for a guy that you can get in that third round, probably.
Yeah, I forgot
just
about
an
him.
idea. Just an idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Justin, you got somebody else you want to mention, or are you good?
So I'm going to dab a little bit in the wide receiver pool, just a tad bit.
I like this.
Okay. Because in 2012, the Bengals took another one of my favorite players in this draft, and he wasn't like the biggest impact player by any means, but he made some impact. It was in the third round. It was Mohamed Sanu. He was like the biggest gadget guy that the Bengals had the opportunity to expand a little bit more, but they kind of really didn't. I feel like they got the most out of him.
He had that yak.
Bro, he had hands for days too, man. Like
yards after the catch.
When it came to those one-handed catches, now we obviously know when we think of that, we think of more AJ Green, but Mohamed Sanu had strong hands. He was just, I feel like that the Bengals had a missed opportunity with developing a new TJ Hushmanzada with him. He was big, he was faster than people expected. He had strong hands. He was not scared to go across the middle, and he would dive for big catches too. You know what I mean? I feel like it was a bonus that he can throw. Played in quarterback a little bit at Rutgers. So, man, I just felt like that he was just like what we've always wanted some of our other draft picks to be since then, up until we got guys like Jamar Chase and now and Tyler Boyd coming to his own. But Mohamed Sanu was one of my favorite players, and a draft pick of mine that I feel like that can really sort of maybe not necessarily compare into the mobility of what he can do, but somebody that I would really feel like that can kind of be like a do-it-all Swiss Army knife that can go and intertwine himself easily with the Jamar Chase or T. Higgins and such, or with let's say with the current weaponry in our room right now. I will say Keon Coleman is one. I like Keon Coleman. He's a different kind of receiver that can really offer more versatility. That you can put him on the outside, you can put him in the slot, you can put him in the backfield to run like some weird running back / wide receiver,
he
pitch routes or whatever.
He does have that great strong hands you're talking about. He's got that contested catch. Yeah, he's got those things, which also T. Higgins has.
Exactly. And I think that he can be, and the thing is, T. Higgins grew to a better route runner when he got into the pros, whereas T. Higgins wasn't the greatest route runner in college at Clemson, but he was a guy that was a vertical downfield threat. He was a jump ball guy. He catch passes in the end zone, but he also ran reverse routes too. I remember watching him do that in the national championship game with Clemson versus LSU. But I feel like Keon Coleman can do a little bit more. Like he's a different kind of version of T. Higgins, if that makes sense. And I think that the Bengals that would be a really good draft pick if they were to make that, if they were to still and make that swing.
All right, Tim, did we suck all yours up, or do you got another one?
No, I still got two more, but
Oh,
I'm gonna hit the wide receiver, the whole wide receiver position as well. One of my favorite players has been AJ Green. I loved AJ Green. When he was drafted out of Georgia in
hard not
2011,
to.
AJ Green was always exciting and fun to watch. When Andy Dalton would throw him these deep ass passes, and he's got a guy right up in front of him, but he still leaps up over and catches the ball, takes it to the house for a touchdown. It was exciting to see AJ Green play football. And he got to retire as a Bengal, so that was even better. And I remember seeing a thing that his kids asked him, "Hey, Dad, is it okay if we root for the Bengals again?" And he's like, "Yeah, you can always root for the Bengals." So AJ Green, and my comps for AJ Green, one is Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he comps perfectly. Pretty damn good with AJ Green. But I know the Bengals aren't going to draft, Marvin Harrison Jr. There's no way. So I was doing some research, looking at the height and how they played and everything. And one player that stuck out to me as a AJ Green, T. Higgins kind of player.
Hold on. Is he from Texas?
No.
Okay, I thought maybe we were going to Texas.
He's 6'3" out of South Carolina, Xavier Legette.
It's a bigger framed.
He's a bigger framed guy, but still, he has those AJ Green catches. When I was watching, his quarterback was running all over the field for his life, and he was tossing up balls, and Legette was catching them and taking off like old AJ Green used to do. And for me, Legette, I'm not going to say we're going to get him, but it would not be nice to see us get him, because one thing I compare Legette to was a DK Metcalf 2.0, because he's so chiseled, and that kid is like a sculpture. So, but that was kind of my besides Marvin Harrison Jr., we all know Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to do great things, and he is comped to like AJ Green.
Yeah, he's like a more muscular version of AJ Green, like very good at route running and controls his body well too. I like Legette too. I think Legette may even be a little bit better run after the catch than coming out than AJ Green was coming out of college.
Yeah, definitely.
I gave Legette. I'm sorry, I was say because I gave Legette more of the Plexico Burris comparison, a big body wide receiver. Because I remember when we had when we had Tate on, when we were talking about the Steelers, he said that he would like to see a guy like Xavier Legette on that team.
Him and I have both been pounding that drum. So I've been arguing
with that direction.
Yeah, I've been arguing with him about Legette. I've been arguing with Big G. We both want Chris Jenkins. So
yeah,
Tim, you're on a roll. Run it back. Keep going.
All right.
Who's your last one?
So my last one is no other than Ocho Cinco, Chad Johnson.
Oh no, this is an interesting one.
6'1" out of Oregon State in 2001, drafted in the second round. I love Chad Johnson. Chad Johnson, it was Chad Johnson. He was out there balling, just showing what he's got. He played for the Cincinnati Bengals. It wasn't our greatest time, but Chad Johnson's just Chad Johnson, and I love Chad Johnson still to this day. I don't know if you guys ever watched that show Nightcap, whatever, with him and old Shannon Sharp.
It's the most watched show in all the podcast world or YouTube. It's so popular, bro. Like,
I love Chad Johnson, and like I said a couple shows ago, Chad Johnson made a comment on there that the one thing the Bengals cannot screw up is drafting a wide receiver out of the draft. So that being said, Chad Johnson, I was looking at who could be compared to Chad Johnson. My first one is Roman Odunze.
Roman Dunze.
Yeah, I don't think I'm screwing up his name, but he kind of had that comparison to Chad Johnson. But I already know that we're not going to draft him. He's going to go up in the top, and he ain't going to be available at 18 anyways, or in the second or third round, whatever. So Brandon, I'm gonna do you proud, brother, because I was watching his film last night. Roman Wilson out of Michigan. He's
I like it.
5'11", 6 foot, 185 pounds. He reminded me of Chad Johnson because I was watching, like I said, I watched the film on both of my favorite, on my favorite player, and then who I was going to comp him, who was going to comp to that player. I was watching Chad Johnson's old films, and we're all older in age. I can't remember everything that Chad Johnson did, so I was watching some of his highlights and his catches and everything. And then I pulled up Roman Wilson. I was like, well, JJ McCarthy, he barely threw the football because they're running the ball 40 times a game. But when he did, he threw passes to Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson was, I might be wrong, or I might not just be an old man, don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Roman Wilson reminds me of Chad Ochocinco. And that's who I would love for the Bengals to get.
I'll tell you why I like that guy. Man, he is tough as nails.
He is.
They will not back down from anybody or anything.
Yep.
Justin, did we take all the wind out of your sail, or you got another one left?
Nope, I got one more left, and I'm going to go in a different position, and it's running back.
Hey, now.
I never liked that this player as a person more specifically, because I felt like that he had all the talent in the world, that he could have been something special with the Bengals, but he just wasn't. It was Jeremy Hill. But I won't ever deny that he had one hell of a rookie year in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not looking for shades of that. I'm looking for somebody to take the bull by the horns and run off with it. Which is another reason why I appreciate us drafting Joe Mixon, because it would allow us to safely and comfortably move off of Jeremy Hill, even though, people thought like we were crazy for drafting Joe Mixon during that time. I like Will Shipley, man. Will Shipley, I feel like that he will be a really great back. There's a number of backs that I really like, but Will Shipley is a guy to me that I think that he will just, again, I keep using the word intermingle or intertwine just because the Bengals already have abundance of talent already on this offense, on this team. I'm not looking for somebody just to catapult themselves to an RB1. I like what Zach Moss's role is going to be. I like what Chase Brown's role is going to be. But I think Will Shipley can add to it. And it doesn't really have to be Will Shipley. It can be Ardrick Estime. It can also be a Blake Corum, as I keep mentioning, out of your boy out of Michigan. It can be a number. It can be a plethora of guys. Man, I can just keep going on and on.
I
But
think
some of these
Estime
names I'm
is
blanking
more of
on.
an icky. Go get those
He is,
tough
but
guards, bang it in the middle.
At some point, you got to get those hard 1 or 2 yard pickups that you just got to be able to just to get a guy. Hey, look, hand this off, bully your way
third and
through it.
1.5 should not be an automatic pass.
No.
Facts. We still got to run the ball. I'll use Tim's reference. We still got to be able to run the damn ball. But Will Shipley, I feel like that he can sort of help himself. He can elevate his draft status a bit, because the need at running back is going to get so severe at some point during this draft. And the Bengals, you don't want to miss out on it. You're still going to need to add more talent to this roster. And I feel like that a guy like Will Shipley, and I know you flashed Blake Corum on the screen for those watching on YouTube, but I know that Will Shipley can be a guy that can work himself perfectly in as a 3-down back, because as much as I appreciate what Travion Williams been for the Bengals over the years since we drafted him, he's not it. I'm sorry. He's a guy that just belongs in special teams. Once in a while, he'll come in and get some pitch to count snaps, when somebody's hurt and whatnot, and we just debone thin of the roster. But I need talent. I need absolute talent at that spot. And I think a guy like Will Shipley can add himself into there.
I don't dislike that at all, man. I think of him more of maybe a James Brooks type back than I do a Jeremy Hill. I don't know if he's that big. Jeremy Hill, I think, was more big thigh and bottom half. but
Jeremy
very
Hill,
but very good.
Jeremy Hill also had some under the radar breakaway speed that nobody really likes to talk about because of how he's been. In 2016 against the Browns, dude broke long runs like crazy. In
Well, he reminds
2014
me of
again,
a young Mixon before Mixon got banged up with his ankles and feet.
facts. But here's the thing about Mixon that I hated that I never really truly got a chance to see. Joe Mixon never broke a long one for like 80 something yards to the house, even though he caught screen passes. And
Oh,
there was ones that he was almost there. He got close. It was just a shoestring tackle away. But that was
I,
always been missing out of the game. And it was refreshing when Chase Brown went in there and he caught his own screen pass and just took it right to the house.
I think
We've
when
been
he
missing
had
that
the
explosiveness.
ability to do that, we didn't
Oh,
have
yeah, I
the
think he did.
ability to get him that opportunity.
That's true, man. That's true.
His
Like
first
Joe
couple
Mixon,
years, uh,
I think Joe Mixon is going to be able to break a couple of longs with the Texans, man, because I think that he's always had that ability. It just never really sort of panned out for him in this way. But I think that the Bengals offense is perfectly set up to where really any running back can eat behind this offensive line that's retooled offensive line in a perfect world, being that they're all staying healthy and performing at a high level. But I think Will Shipley can really add some fun dimensions to it. And he's not saying that, and I say that he's not a guy that I'm going to bang on the table that I hope that the Bengals draft. Again, there are a plethora of guys that I feel like can fill that void, including your boy Blake Corum out of Michigan. I just
I
like to
like
see
it.
the Bengals invest in it a little bit more going into this draft. You
Yeah,
got
they
two
need one
picks.
more guy. I think they know
Yeah.
that. So I've really enjoyed this segment. Actually, to be honest with you, this might have to be a recurring segment every year. But believe it
I
or
do too.
not, I have one more position that we did not talk about at all. I'm gonna go up here on the board. We're gonna go tight end. So we're gonna go overall of athleticism. I'm gonna go left and right. I'm gonna go through these, and then I'm gonna tell you which one at the end, which side is the Bengal. So athleticism 87 to 79, total score 76 to 87. 40-yard dash 4.57 versus 4.68. 10-yard split 1.55 versus 1.65. Vertical jump 39.5 versus 35.5. Broad jump 10.5 versus 9.11. 3-cone drill 7.15 versus 6.92. 20-yard shuttle 4.19 versus 4.32. One of them did not do the bench press. These are tight ends. Athleticism scores second and third overall. Total scores first and fourth overall. The Bengal is on the right-hand side.
Is he a current or pass?
He's a past.
I'm going to go Tyler Eifert.
Tim, you locking that in?
Yeah, I'd go Tyler Eifert too.
You should, because I picked a golden domer.
Yeah, I'd say
Tyler Eifert is on the right. Do you guys want to take a stab at who's on the left?
Sure, might as well.
Who do you think it is?
And
this year's draft.
It's tough, man, because Brock Bowers didn't test in the combine.
Mm-mm.
And that broad jump and that vertical jump, I don't think he is as tall. So I'm going to rule out Brock Bowers. I'm going to go with Jatavian Sanders. No, Theo Johnson out of Penn State.
Tell him what he's won. Theo Johnson out of Penn State. So the overall number wasn't as good as the Tyler Eifert overall because of the production. He only played one season. They didn't throw the ball a ton. They didn't throw him the ball a ton. They had some offensive woes there at Penn State. So I think for somebody that you can get late day 2, maybe day 3, probably day 3, honestly, I think we're looking at somebody, if he slides into that third or fourth round, late third or fourth round, we can get him in that area. I kind of like this one. I kind of like this pick. I think the upside
would
could
absolutely love. I would absolutely love a Theo Johnson pick at tight end. Pairing them all with Gesicki. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Again, if the Bengals draft Brock Bowers at 18, I would not be mad
at him. You can get him
that.
in the third. You know what I mean? I think you can get him with our second, third round pick.
I think you can get I think the Bengals might want to get him with your first third round pick if it gets a little crazy runs in that tight end, because after Brock Bowers and maybe Jay Sanders, it gets a little bit dicey because people are going to start fighting over guys. You know, and you don't want to put yourself in a position like last year where you had an opportunity of getting a guy like a Luke Musgrave or a Tucker Kraft, and next thing you know, the Packers take both of those guys. You can get this would be an absolute get at the tight end position, and I feel like that the Bengals will love if they get him.
Yeah. It depends on what board you look at, where they're ranked at. The kid out of Kansas State's pretty good too. There's some good people up there. I actually did like that and enjoy that segment, to be honest with you.
Yeah, great show.
So that was actually not me blowing smoke. That was a lot of fun to do, I think.
Yeah, I love
anything, any closing comments before we go out, guys?
I cannot believe that we went through this whole entire show and we did not mention the New Heights live show happening right now. And our boy Joe Burrow is on it. And our boy Chase Youngs, friend of the show, you know, producer of the Cut to the Chase podcast, is in attendance to see that live. I can't believe we didn't even talk about that this whole time. But there's no sound bites or anything like that. You know, let them all have their great time. We'll be able to check in with it later on. But yeah, that's happening, and I'm so mad that I'm not a part of that, and I'm not there right now.
Yeah, I'm mad that I'm not going to be in Cincinnati next week. Tim,
yeah, I'm mad about that too.
Party shots.
You know, I just want to reiterate to everybody, thank you for watching the show. You know, give us that thumbs up, like, share. You know, I want to see more likes and more shares of this channel. You know, we've been doing as much as we can, and you know, we appreciate your support. And you know, Houday.
Said well, my friend. We appreciate everybody checking us out every week, being our ride or dies. Listen, we got people over here checking us out from other fandoms. I see out there making comments to us. I've seen some Ravens people. I've seen a lot of Steelers people. We appreciate you guys checking in on us, seeing what's going on over here in the division, and we appreciate it. So give us that thumbs up, that like, that subscribe, share us, tell a friend to tell a friend, and check us out next week as we are running through the jungle.